Welcome back to the Short Game Podcast. It is Friday, March 6th. We made it to the end of the leverage week. I love watching people start a business and immediately go pick a fight they don't need to have. They look at a massively crowded market and decide they are going to win by just sweating, more than the next guy. They drop their prices by 10% and call it a strategy. It is the exact same energy as sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic when there is a wide-open backroad right next to you. It just means you lack awareness. If you are fighting a fair fight, you have already messed up. Today we are reading the ultimate playbook for asymmetric leverage, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I'm Drew Meitner. I run NexYear. I do not compete with generic promotional companies for scraps. I do not fight gatekeepers. We bypass the entire front line and drop a high-end physical asset directly on the CEO's desk. A tycoon wins the battle before it even starts. Let's close out the week.
What's your name?
My name is Tom Shelby.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
King Ragnar. That is my name.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
I'm Batman.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
My name is Asax Schrader.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Antonio Montana.
My name is Patrick Bateman.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus.
Welcome back to episode 20 of the podcast, ending off what we are calling the leverage week. Grab a beer and really listen to what I am about to tell you today, because it is going to save you years of absolute headache. I see so many spectators out there who proudly announce online that they are going to war. They puff out their chests, drop some generic therapy speak about the daily grind, and talk about battling competitors in these absolutely jam-packed, incredibly bloody markets. It honestly makes me want to pull my hair out. Listen to me very carefully right now. If you are fighting a fair fight in business, you have already completely messed up. Wanting a fair fight just proves you have absolutely no idea what you are doing, and it proves you lack basic situational awareness. True tycoons, the real operators who are actually building wealth and keeping their sanity intact while doing it, they win the battle before it even starts. They do not rely on luck, and they certainly do not rely on grinding it out in a market where everyone is offering the exact same service. This brings us to the book focus for today, which is basically the ancient holy grail of asymmetric leverage. We are diving deep into The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I know every finance bro has a pristine, unread copy of this sitting on their desk, but we are actually going to break down the theory today. Sun Tzu wrote this over 2,000 years ago, and the translation by Lionel Giles is the one we use because it delivers the pure operator mindset. I am going to give you the theory for the first part of this episode, and then we are going to connect the dots. We are going to bridge the gap to my reality and look at what my day one crew and I are actually building over at NexYear. Let us start with the biggest misconception about strategy, which is the foolish idea that the goal is destroying the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. Sun Tzu explicitly says that to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. He literally tells us that supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. The absolute highest level of mastery is getting the win without throwing a single punch. He says the skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting and overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. If you are bleeding out your own capital and your team's energy just to win one single client, you are doing it entirely wrong. The victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas the guy destined to lose fights first and then looks for victory. That is exactly what these rookie founders do. They launch a company, step right into the octagon with 50 other identical companies, and start blindly swinging, hoping they somehow come out on top through sheer willpower. The master strategist sets up the board so that by the time the game officially starts, the opponent is already in checkmate. They put themselves into a position which makes defeat impossible, and they do not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. They secure themselves against defeat first, recognizing that security against defeat implies defensive tactics, while the ability to defeat the enemy means taking the offensive. Then there is the whole concept of prolonged warfare, which is a massive trap. If you want to talk about destroying your own resources, just look at what Sun Tzu says about drawn-out conflicts. He wrote that there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. When your weapons are dulled, your ardor is damped, your strength is exhausted, and your treasure is spent, other chieftains will spring up to take advantage. He warns clearly that if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. In the modern business world, prolonged warfare is essentially a race to the bottom in a price war. It is you and 3 other agencies fighting for the exact same client, undercutting each other constantly. You are just draining your substance away, and as Sun Tzu says, when your substance is drained away, the peasantry will be afflicted by heavy exactions. Your team burns out, your profit margins disappear, and eventually some other competitor scoops up the market while you are licking your wounds. Only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on, which means bypassing the conflict altogether. The goal in war is not lengthy campaigns. The ultimate goal is victory. If you are stuck in a 12-month sales cycle arguing with mid-level managers over a $5,000 retainer, you are fighting a protracted war and it is killing your company. So, how do we guarantee this victory without dragging ourselves through the mud? We use intelligent positioning, and we attack weakness instead of smashing our heads against a brick wall. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground, and the soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe. He says the rule in war is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak. It is so incredibly simple, yet people let egos get in the way. They always want to attack the heavily fortified fortress directly. Sun Tzu says the worst policy of all is to besiege walled cities. If a general loses his patience and launches his men like swarming ants, a third of them will be killed, and the town still will not be taken. That is exactly what cold calling 1,000 random leads in a saturated market feels like. You are launching your team like swarming ants against a walled city. Instead, appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend, and march swiftly to places where you are not expected. You can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places which are undefended. This means finding the wide-open backroad. It means doing the things your competitors are too lazy or too blinded by their own corporate jargon to execute on. Sun Tzu says all warfare is fundamentally based on deception. When able to attack, you must seem unable, and when far away, you must make the enemy believe you are near. You change the rules of the engagement so entirely that the enemy does not even know what to defend. He calls it the divine art of subtlety and secrecy, where you learn to be invisible, and hence you hold the enemy's fate in your hands. You concentrate your forces while ensuring the enemy's forces must be divided. You do not fight them where they are strong and ready for you. You outmaneuver them completely. He literally advises to take a long and circuitous route, and after enticing the enemy out of the way, contrive to reach the goal before him. That precise maneuver shows a deep knowledge of the artifice of deviation. You bypass the front line because numerical weakness comes from having to prepare against possible attacks, while numerical strength comes from compelling your adversary to make preparations against you. You must know the enemy and know yourself, because if you do, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. All right, so that is the theory, and now let us transition to the remaining 40% to connect the dots. I want to bring this ancient military strategy all the way back to reality, to the actual dirt and grime of being an operator right now. Let us talk openly about what my team and I are doing at NexYear, because our business model perfectly mirrors this philosophy of asymmetric prayer-arch leverage. My first core value, and honestly my biggest incompetence trigger, is watching people start businesses and immediately go to war over the exact same scraps as everyone else. It is physically painful to watch these founders make such foolish strategic errors right out of the gate. I hate bad drivers, I hate dishonesty, and I despise people who make life harder than it needs to be. Competing to be a 10% cheaper digital marketing agency is the business equivalent of sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic when there is a wide-open back road right next to you. You are voluntarily choosing to sit in that agonizing traffic. It means you completely lack awareness of your surroundings. You are walking right up to the walled city and throwing your men at it like ants, exactly like Sun Tzu warned us not to do. If you want to win, you have to realize that the market is only crowded if you are standing in the exact same line as the rest of the herd. At NexYear, we strictly refuse to stand in that line with the spectators. That brings me to my second core value, which is the operator reality. We are operators in the truest sense, not spectators. NexYear does not fight the traditional marketing battles that every other agency is bleeding out over. We refuse to fight over digital ad space, and we do not sit on Zoom calls arguing with mid-level managers about cost per click. That is a fair fight, and we just established that if you are in a fair fight, you are losing. We use absolute asymmetric leverage to get what we want. While the spectators are fighting a bloody, protracted war, dulling their weapons and exhausting their treasure, we take the circuitous route. We completely bypass the front line of gatekeepers and spam filters. Instead of screaming into the void online, we drop a high-end physical asset directly onto the CEO's desk. That is what an asymmetric attack looks like in the modern era. The CEO's desk is the undefended place, the quiet spot where the enemy does not even know what to defend. Nobody else is doing physical logistics at a VIP tier because it is genuinely hard. It takes actual work, and it cannot be easily automated with garbage software. We avoid what is strong, the saturated digital inbox, and we strike at what is weak, the empty physical desk of the decision maker. We win the battle before it even starts, because by the time that CEO is holding our physical asset in their hands, the other agencies do not even know a war is happening. We have successfully put ourselves beyond the possibility of defeat. We are invisible, just like the wind, leaving no tracks for our competitors to follow. Finally, the third core value ties this all together: systemic output and true freedom. I value freedom above almost anything else, besides loyalty to my day one crew and winning. True freedom comes from not having to fight for every inch of ground. If you are constantly battling for attention, you have zero freedom. By focusing strictly on strategic logistics for high-level VCPs, NexYear removes itself from the traditional promotional market entirely. We aren't fighting the other agencies. We are playing a game where they cannot even reach us. We achieved supreme excellence because we have broken the enemy's resistance without fighting. We changed the rules so entirely that we are untouchable. When you build systemic output, you do not need to rely on the brute force of an oversized sales team. A victorious army opposed to a rooted one is as a pound's weight placed in the scale against a single grain. When our asset lands on that desk, we are the pound weight, and the 50 unread emails from competitors are the single grain. It is undeniable momentum. He compares the energy of good fighting men to the momentum of a round stone rolled down a mountain thousands of feet in height. That is the momentum NexYear operates with. We let the competition fight over the scraps while we go straight to the king. We hoard our strength, concentrate our energy, and keep our plans dark and impenetrable as night. When we move, we fall like a thunderbolt directly onto the target. That is how you operate in the real world. You do not complain about the market being too hard. You do not therapy speak your way out of taking accountability. You just build a smarter system. You find the asymmetric advantage, and you ruthlessly exploit it. You must act like the master strategist who dictates the terms of the engagement before a single move is made. So here's the takeaway I am leaving you with today. I want you to really look at your business right now with total honesty. Are you bleeding out in a fair fight, or are you changing the rules so you don't have to fight at all?